and welcome to the first program in the series of 2 programs that the Alumni Office is offering on our speaker series this year with the theme of 50 years of celebration of study abroad at Santa Clara. It's with great pleasure that I welcome Annie Robichaud back to the Santa Clara campus and to our Alumni House. She is a 1970 graduate with majors both in English literature and Italian language and literature. Annie studied abroad her junior year, 1968-69, through the Loyola Chicago program in Rome. And small world as it is, happened to be on campus today. We have with us Bianca Davis, who is as the recruiter rep from the Loyola Rome program. Of course, it's now called the John Felice Rome Center, so it's changed the name, but it's still the same. Well, it's not the same location, but it's the same city. So I'm curious, how many of you were alumni of this program? How many went to Rome with the Loyola program? Thanks. As I was saying, Annie graduated from Santa Clara in 1970, but she continued her studies in Berkeley in 1972 before returning to Italy in 73. And she hasn't really left Italy since. She's still there.
Except for occasional trips to the States.
That's true. That's true. She was teaching English for 2 years in Rome. At that time, she decided with her husband, Pino, she married an Italian, surprise, moved to the mountain area outside of Assisi where they worked the land, they raised 3 children, and restored their farmhouse. In addition to all that, she founded an English Language Institute in Assisi in 1975 that she ran for 18 years. She was a site coordinator and lecturer for a 2-week elder hostel program. She has created and conducted Umbrian countryside tours for the Smithsonian Institute. She is certified tour guide for Umbria, which is, I can tell you, not an easy task for an Italian, much less for an American, so it's something to be very proud of. So, she does lectures for a variety of tour and study groups, such as the Talk Tours, Back Roads, Wilderness Travels, and others. As you may remember, there was a horrific earthquake in Italy, and Assisi was affected and particularly affected. And since that time, Annie has been returning to the U.S. to give lectures regarding this and such, and do her cooking tours for all of us, for friends and longtime clients, and we're really grateful for her coming to be with us today for that. On a personal note, back in 2003, it was a year Dr. Bari had planned the program in Assisi. He was a program, I don't know if you know Dr. Bari, but he was a longtime professor here at Santa Clara who went to Assisi quite often with students during the summer. Well, he called like a week before they were supposed to go and said, "I am very sick, I don't think I can go." He said, "Call Annie Robichaud." So I said, "Okay, I will." So Annie stayed us that summer because everyone had their plane tickets and we were all going to go, but we didn't have Professor Bari to take us. So within a few days, Annie was there to help with all on the ground in Assisi. So we're grateful for her for that. She also provided a tour and arranged for lunch in Assisi during the alumni travel program in 2006 to Italy. And it was great to see her at that point. So I'm going to be quiet now. I'm going to turn this over to Annie, and I would like you to join me in welcoming Annie back to SCU.
That's the one thing I was trying to remember, turn my mic on. It's wonderful to be back. I don't recognize the campus. I saw the Mission Church from afar, and I just want to tell a brief story. The last time I lectured at Santa Clara was at the DCC in 1998, and it was a slide lecture then on the earthquake in Assisi, and it was to bring back tourism to Umbria because people saw that video on television of the 2 sections of the vault collapsing and thought the city had collapsed. Well, that caused the collapse of all the tourism in Umbria. And so I came on a 6 weeks lecture tour that time. It was quite extraordinary because I remember that I was sending out faxes and handwritten letters to all the elder hostel people who were faxing me at Giovannino's restaurant 6 kilometers down the hill from our farm to say, are you and Pino alive and well? Is that another waitress at the restaurant well? How is, Mario the baker, and how's Assisi? And I was answering, we're fine, but everybody thinks me correct. And so extraordinarily, 4 elder hostel couples in 4 different parts of the country. Eleanor Bloomfield is going to be here tonight. She's no longer able to walk. And she lives in San Mateo. And I'm not even sure they're still alive. A dear couple in Greenfield, Massachusetts, and a couple in Washington. They said, we will get the lecture venues, you get together the lecture. And I went to the head of restoration in Italy, who was in Assisi, and I said, I need to get good pictures in the damaged sites, and they got me into places. I don't even know where all the wonderful slides are. They got me into places which were totally off limits. The city of Assisi convinced Alitalia to pay my ticket. The Chamber of Commerce of Assisi paid all my U.S. tickets, and 4 elderly couples put together in 1 month lectures at Vassar, Smith, American University, USC, UCLA, University of Texas in Austin, the Portland Fine Arts Museum, Santa Clara, the Museo Italo-Americano in San Francisco, Loyola Chicago. It was unbelievable. And I can't even remember, University of Wisconsin. It was just amazing. So I went around to all the merchants in Assisi, and I said, these people are trying to pull it all together. Please help me thank them. So I got on the plane, as I do for my U.S. cooking tours, with 2 outfits for me and 60 gifts. Always. And it's because I'm giving cooking classes in 34 homes throughout the States, and I'm staying with wonderful friends everywhere, like Celia and Gino right here. And Celia was at Santa Clara with me. And then I'm going to be staying with Patrice and Arturo. Where are you? And Patrice designed my first website in 1997, right after the earthquake, I think. And she's married to Arturo. Where are you, Arturo? He's probably in the kitchen making the broccoli scheda. And there's San Damiano. Arturo's from Umbria. And then Carol Duffield is here with Tina, and Carol was at Santa Clara with me, and she hosted a wonderful cooking class in San Francisco, which was a birthday surprise for Tina. And so see, all these people are pulling together to make these tours extraordinary. Well, that one too. So all the merchants in Assisi gave me gifts to bring to the States. So Alitalia, since they're flying me free, they let me get on with overweight baggage, because I was bringing to the professor at Smith a ceramic plate this big. And I was bringing a painting on glass, and I was bringing textiles of table runners. And paintings. I literally had 2 outfits and a suitcase of gifts from the people of Assisi. And at the time, I lectured at DCC, and this is where I wanted to go with all this. I remember walking past the mission, and I hadn't been back since probably 72, and I looked up, and there are 2 niches in the mission. And one is Francesco di Assisi, and one is Chiara, or Clara of Assisi. And I walked past, back and forth as a student, and never looked up. And that afternoon I said, ciao, Chiara. And that was the last time I was lecturing at Santa Clara. It was really something. I was at DCC. So I thank you very much. What I'd like to say about this is, this lecture is dedicated above all to my wonderful husband, Pino. I miss him tremendously. I'm here about 7 weeks, but he's a builder and restores medieval architecture. And his work has been way, way down, and I have all these requests, so of course I'm here. It's dedicated to my 3 children. One is in San Francisco. I'll see him tomorrow. I see him every day for lunch while I'm here. And 2 are in the States, in Umbria. One is in Oviedo, one in Perugia. And I dedicate this to the rural people who taught us everything, not just about farming, but about life. Really about what life is. What values are, what really counts, and you're going to meet them, and they're all here. So we'll start. It's dedicated to them. Now, I haven't done a PowerPoint for a year, so let's try. I think you just push this. I'm doing well. This is, whoops, it should be going ahead though. This should be, okay, and this is the start. This is the road out to our house from Assisi. Who's been to Assisi? And we live in that wonderful area behind Mount Subasio, so we're about 6 kilometers from Assisi. And the rural house we moved into looked like this in 1975. And that's why the rent was $25 a month. And that was wonderful because that's all we could afford. We arrived in Umbria with $120 between us, all our earthly belongings in the Volkswagen of a friend who also had her 2 grown boys in the Volkswagen. And I was in Rome, and I had done, as Barbara had mentioned, I'd done my credential work at Berkeley. My first teaching job was in '71 at Immaculate Heart School in Belmont. And you could teach at a Catholic school without a credential. I don't know if you still can. And I wasn't sure that I wanted to teach, so I just, threw myself in this. And it was so memorable. Celia and Gino met some of the people last night. I had a cooking class in Belmont. It was hosted by the mom of one of my second graders. I'm still linked to a lot of my second graders. And 2 other mothers of my second graders were there. And at a cooking class which Anne hosted, this was her 3rd one, her daughter was there, and her granddaughter. It was 3 generations. So I taught at Belmont, loved teaching, did my credential work at Berkeley, finished in '72, no jobs, we're the baby boom generation. Advised my advisor, if you're a black, Hispanic, or Asian male, you can probably get a teaching job. But not if you're a white female. Annie, you should try for a job in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I said, as the Italians would say, forget that. Next year, maybe I'll come back and do my lecture on gestures. Which, I'll throw a few gestures in just for fun. And I decided, okay, I'm going to educate myself. And I set out to try to get around the world with $900. I was 9 months in Europe, hitchhiking everywhere. It was safe then. Young people don't do it today. And I landed up without money in Rome. And I'd gone to Loyola Rome, and I'd majored in Italian and English at Santa Clara, so my Italiano was okay. And I didn't have money, and another Rome friend was there, and I moved in with Michael and got a job teaching at the international school there. And loved it. I taught 3rd grade. Then I decided the education has to go on, and I applied and was accepted to teach 3rd grade at the international school in Moshi in Tanzania. But I really wanted to see Sicily before I left Italy. So with my best friend from, who's Sicilian here? So with my best friend from Berkeley, Nancy, we hitchhiked down and all through Sicily during my winter vacation, or my Christmas vacation at the international school. We so loved Sicily, we didn't have enough time to hitchhike back, so I could teach Monday. So we got on a packed train full of immigrants, going back after Christmas vacation to jobs in Brussels, Geneva, Zurich, Turin, Milan. And there was one empty seat. It was next to me. Pino sat in it. The rest is history. I was not going to marry an Italian. And we talked politics all night, which is the dangerous discussion with Pino. I asked him on the phone today, so what do you think of Renzi, the new prime minister? He said, it's a lunga story. So the conversation kind of ended there. And anyway, actually Barbara said it was very nice of you to do that we were married when we came here. We actually weren't. And we came here, I was 27 at the time. No offense to Italians, but I wasn't going to marry an Italian. And we came here, worked the land for about 3 years, and I'm a guide in Umbria, as Barbara said, and I finished my guided tours or during them. A lot of the people I tour would say, well, did you come to work the land in Umbria because you grew up on a farm in Wisconsin? Because I was born in New England and grew up in Milwaukee. And I say, heck no. I lived in the suburbs in Milwaukee. I wanted to work the land because I'd been at Berkeley in '72. Which is the truth. This is a life adventure. And they were the best years of my life. We worked hard, physical labor, much of the day. See, I had this wonderful combination of, I worked with my animals and the farm animals, and I'll tell you about that, for about 6 to 12. Washed in a big wash tub in front of the fireplace where we had a black cauldron with water boiling all the time. When you took a bath in this bucket, you decided if you wanted a warm, dirty bath or a tepid, clean bath, because soot fell into the cauldron all the time. So you had to get the water out before it was hot enough, really, if you wanted it clean. And then I'd get on my little motorbike. We couldn't afford a car. Go down the bumpy dirt road, which you can hardly see here, to my school. I started teaching English to 8 students, and I graduated and wrote to school. We had a school that enrolled about 350 adults and children. And so I had physical labor in the morning and mental in the afternoon, and oh, it was just stupendous. So why did things change? Pino was a chemical analyst in Milan. He learned to work in stone in Umbria. In the beginning, he was mostly at the farm, and then more and more working in stone, and now he has a business and others work with him. Things changed because our children came along, and you needed a greater income. And there's no income after 9 acres, which is what we have in the hills, especially when you know nothing about the land. So our businesses grew, and the animals had to go. But in the beginning, there were quite a few, and you'll see a few. If you look at that white structure, that's my wash basin. Well, until we got a washing machine, which took us about a year to earn the money, I washed all our clothes out there. And you ought to try scrubbing Levi's when it's 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And that wasn't not pleasant. And so I'd go upstairs to warm my hands in front of the fireplace, and people would always grab my hands and say, don't do that, because if you apply direct heat to frozen hands, you get chilblains, and your hands get red and swollen and itchy. But most farm people have chilblains on their hands and feet all winter, because your tendency is to warm your hands when they're freezing. So that was where I washed. To the right of the arch was the outdoor bread oven. I didn't bake bread in it. The farm woman who lived there before us had, and it all caved in by the time we moved there. And that arch is where our sheep were. Behind where the wash basin is was the stall where our rabbits were. We had about 80 rabbits, and I had to scythe the grass for my rabbits every day. And, you know, forget Pilates. You're just going to scythe grass for rabbits. I had to scrimp, wreath, or scythe. And so I'd go up to the back field, and I'd call across the field, you know, the Swiss yodel. In Umbria, it's, oh, is the call. And farm women shout across the hills to each other. And so if I go, oh, Katina would yell back, oh, and that meant I'm going for my grass, she's going for her grass. So we meet up in the backfield. She'd teach me, you know, this is for your rabbits. Don't give them nap. They're just going to get diarrhea. If you give them nap, they're going to get too thin. This grass will fatten them up. That grass will poison them. And then she'd say, this is chicory, pick it and go home and steam it, and garlic and olive oil for Pinot tonight. This is wild broccoli. So I learned everything about what's on the fields from Katie, including what's good for the rabbits. And then the other side of the bread oven was the chicken coop and the wine cellar. And then there was the pigsty on the other side, and we lived upstairs. The first of the 3 windows, the upper, was our bedroom, and then there was another bedroom, if you want, you can call it a guest room. And then there was a storeroom and a kitchen. There was no living room. You don't live, except outdoors, working. And in the farmhouse, it's gathering and socialization is done around the kitchen fireplace, which is the only source of heat. We heated our beds with bedworms. That's the house today, restored by Pino. And the lower level now is our dining room. And where, let's see, the dining room is where my sheep were and my rabbits were, and our kitchen is where the wine cellar was, and the guest bedroom is downstairs, and is where our pigsty was. And we live upstairs. 4 bedrooms are now upstairs. And this I took last April. And we're building, we got permission to build a sheep stall in the back, and then we got permission to turn it into another house, so we're transforming that into apartments to rent. These are wild plum. That's the spring. This is my old farm kitchen, which is now a bedroom upstairs, and you can see the beams. The beams, the farmer who, the house was worth $25 because the farmer who lived in it built it. And all the main beams were oak that he cut down, and the cross beams were fir. And that's the kitchen of the house we lived in while we restored the farmhouse. And that's us in 1975. And always with the rubber boots on, you're always in the mud. And this must have actually been taken, I think, probably in September. And these are our dear farm neighbors, Pepe Mondina, 1975, who helped us with our first grape harvest. Now, when we moved in, the road was totally rutted out. And it was impassable. And it took us about 7 months of work to afford the grader that could come up. So, with our money, which was very little, one of the first things Pino bought was an old Gilera. He got it for about $30. And so we go to town on this motorcycle and then get our groceries, tie him to the back of the motorcycle. He had to park it down outside the woods beyond that rutted out road, and we'd walk everything up on our shoulders. And I lost 20 pounds the first month. And when we had our first grape harvest, we moved into the house September 8th. Mondine and Pepe came up to help us the end of September. And there they are. That's the house. Mondine and Pepe picking grapes. And it was the last grape harvest of that old vineyard which had been abandoned because the grapes developed, what do you call it, phylloxera?
Yeah.
Because the vineyard had been abandoned for 10 years. And they came up the road with their oxen cart with the bigonze, the big wooden casks to put the grapes in. That's me up there. We picked the grapes, and now we're going back through the woods with the oxen cart to Pepe and Mondina's, and they will make the wine in their wine cellar. And then after they made it, they wheeled it up to our house in this 60-liter demijohn. So that's all the wine from our first grape harvest. And that's Miss Mondina. She's not any longer living. And this is Nonna. That's Mondina's mother-in-law. And she was just an amazing woman. She was limping always from arthritis and everything, but she used to split all the firewood. So this little lady, 85, there was the big stump here, and these pieces, logs like this, that had to be split for the wood stove. But she'd pick up the log like this, pick up the axe, and wham with one stroke. She just split wood like this. And then she'd pile it all up in this bucket and carry it up these 12 steps, limping with her cane. That was Nonna. Pepe and Mondina no longer live in that house, and now another farm family, well, they lived in it until recently, and this is the grandfather, Alessandro. And there he is. If you dropped in to see Alessandro, he's always offering you wine from this cantina. This is a vineyard below Assisi. There's Assisi up on the hill. And these are the grapevines of our friends Pepe and Gentile, who still live as people lived in the 70s. They're the last farm couple doing this. And I had probably one of my best-selling tours, Assisi Spello, no doubt about it, Perugia Geruda, where we go deep in the farm family. But the Rural Life Revisited tour. And we go around to about 4 of our rural neighbors and talk to them and hear their stories. I translate. And we go and taste their wine, their olive oil, and meeting Pepe and Gentile is something else. This is a vineyard in Assisi, and I wanted to point out near us, but not our vineyard. This is the concept of a way to get more grapes out of the land, very common in farming in Umbria in the 70s and 80s. You have a vineyard, you have a small plot of land, you're probably a sharecropper, which means the landlord will get 48% of the yield, you'll get 52%. You could be an extended family of 14 people trying to live off 12 acres, 52% of 12 acres, non-arable. What does that mean? You get the most you can from the land. So you have a vineyard, but you want more grapes, you need more wine, you need your home vinegar. So what will you do? In the middle of the fields where you can also plant wheat, oats, or barley, you plant the European maple tree. And then you prune her so that her branches hold up the grapevine. And this maple tree is called La Madre dell'Uva, the mother of the grapevine. So if you're traveling in Italy, and if you keep your eyes open, here and there, you can see a field with a few trees in the middle with grapevines crawling up their trunks. And that's the concept of the Madre dell'Uva. This is a farm neighbor, Peppa. We go to her cellar to taste her wine. This is Pepe, bringing out some of his wine. If you ask them what kind of wine you have, there's always just 2 answers. Vino rosso or vino bianco? And if you push Pepe and say, what are the grapes, he'll tell you. He means to say Trebbiano, but they know all the words in dialect, so he's going to say like Trebbiolo. And he was kind of trying to figure out what the grape is based on what the word he is using, pulling out of Umbrian dialect. These photos were all taken by the gentleman in the black hat. I sent them an invitation to come. I haven't heard from them. Peter and Jan Roth, they live in Los Altos. And they did the, oh, this is how the Rural Life Tour started. Peter and Jan Roth are absolute lovers of Italy, but they're fanatics about Umbria. And they had done every single tour that I offer with me in coming 3 years. So that meant Perugia Deruta, Bevagna Montefalco, Spello Assisi, Narni, Todi, Orvieto, Gubbio, Spoleto. So they're coming back another year, and Peter says, so what tour are we going to do this year? And I said, Peter, I'm out of tours. And he said, well, could you take us to Cortona? I said, no, I'm not authorized to do Tuscany, because you have to be authorized. The year I studied for the Umbrian Guide exam, I studied 2 years. 500 people tried, 18 of us made it. It's hell. It's hell. As my friend Elaine says, who teaches art history at Syracuse, it was worse than her doctoral exams. It was in art history, so being a guide is a rough go. So I said, I can't guide anywhere but Umbria. He says, well, we need a new tour. So I thought about it, I went to bed, I wrote him an email the next day and I said, I've got a new tour, it's called Rural Life Revisited. And he said, we're on. And this was the first tour. And this was probably 10 years ago, and this tour is much beloved now. And it's always new for me because every time we go to the farm people, I hear new stories. Or they're offering us something new. This is Peppa. This isn't the Rural Life Revisited tour. This was for San Martino. We went to see her this year. San Martino is November 11th. That's when the farmers traditionally taste the new wine for the first time. The saying is San Martino, castagne e vino. San Martino, chestnuts and wine. And you have roasted chestnuts on the wood so to drink the new wine. So she's pulling out her Merlot. Look at those fingernails. Those are her looking fingernails. And that's the last bunch of grapes to serve us that she didn't put in the wine, which she made with her sons. And there, this is a very old photo. Look at all the Madre de Luva. Do you see those? How they prune those? And this is an archive photo, really. This is probably about 1970. This too, about 1970. That's a small hill town, but not Assisi. Yeah, 70. Yeah, in 75, when we were there, you saw Pepe came up the road with the oxen because he couldn't get up with a tractor. He had a tractor, but they used the oxen for the hillsides because, a tractor can flip over, and it's dangerous to plow hillsides with a tractor. This is the father of somebody I know. He's younger than me. He's no longer alive. You know who this is, Patrice? This is the father of Rebecca's father-in-law, Stefano's grandfather.
Oh, grandfather.
Yeah, grandfather. And you can see plowing with the oxen, and then those are not properly called haystacks, but straw stacks. They pack all the straw, which is going to be used for oxen bedding. And look at this scene. 1144, the Cathedral of San Rufino in Assisi. A relief. On many Romanesque churches, if you look at the reliefs, you're going to see reenactments of rural life. Isn't that something? Same oxen. And this is a neighbor of ours with his oxen. This is about 1975. That's Pino hoeing our vegetable garden, and those are out of focus. This was an instrument. Those are the figs we picked, and they're drying. And we'll string them up later, the dried figs. This is the front of the house, 1975. And so up the stairs you went, into the kitchen. There's a little bit of laundry hanging out. This Pino put here to catch the rainwater from the gutter pipe, because there was never enough water, so he created like a cistern. There's a black oil drum there, because I just been boiling jars of some kind of jam, probably. And these are our first two children, Keegan and Mattia. They're now 33 and 31. And when they were young boys, we still had the pigs. We had corn, wheat, oats, barley. By the time their sister Julia came along, I think we had our last fowl, and then we don't have any animals now, just a few token goats, a couple donkeys. This is hunting wild mushrooms in our woods. So this is fall time. And we used to hunt the mushrooms, and then I'd always take the mushrooms in a basket to our neighbor, Karina. And I'd have this whole pile of mushrooms. And I thought I was getting to know him. She always, limited the poison. So from a pile this big, I went home with a handful of mushrooms. It was just, Anna, Mori, you're going to die immediately. Don't put it near your tongue, So we'd hunt them, but you can't possibly eat them without having them checked out. After the mushroom season will come the olive picking season. Umbria has 5 varieties of olives, the most common are the Moraiolo, the Lecchino, and the Frantoio. And everybody picks their own olives. This is actually one of our trees. This is not a Moraiolo because they'll be rounder. This is probably a Lecchino. You try to pick when they're black, but if the season isn't quite right, you're even picking when they're a bit green. And you strip the branches down. There should be a photo of that. That's me in '75. And that's Pinot last year. And look at the basket in '75, because the baskets were lent to us by Pepe and Mundine. And in the winter, when the men sat around the fire at the time when you talk and share the stories, they'd have all the willow branches that they cut, and they'd weave the baskets for the olive picking and the grape picking. Boy, I'd give my right arm to find one of those baskets. They're not there anymore, really. This is Peppa picking with us last November. And see, there's the basket. Peppa brought over her basket. See, she still has one. You take the branch and strip it right down into them. And then another thing we do now is, this is like Pinot, a friend of ours, that's actually Slim Keegan in the red. Now you lay down nettings, and then you can just rake them down or whatever. And why didn't we do it in '75? Because the other people didn't do it, the farm people didn't do it, we did everything they did, they couldn't afford it. They couldn't have afforded the netting. They couldn't afford a broom to sweep out the stall, so they made the broom out of the broom plant. You'll see that later. This is at the mill, and it's taken to the mill. And then everybody, you get a time period booked into the mill, and Pino got the call this year at midnight. He left the house at midnight, because you are absolutely there to see your olives go in and your olives come out, because you don't want any of your neighbor's olives to mix in with it. And their olives taste the same as your olives, but the oil is sacred. So every time they tell you to be at the mill, you're there, and you don't leave the mill till your olive oil is on. That's Pepe with his olive oil. So he goes down to the cellar, he's got a big, steel canister, fills an old mineral water bottle, and takes it up to the kitchen when he needs olive oil. There's Peppa making bruschetta on her wood stove top, rubbing it with garlic. Look at how green the olive oil is. If it's yellow, don't use it. There's Chiarina, another farm neighbor. This is a rural life tour. It was in November, and she said, well, come on into my house and try the olive oil. We just brought it back from the mill. There was a family with me from San Diego, 3 kids and 3 kids. Look at the color of that oil. That's just milk, Peppa's olive oil. There it is. That's the real thing. Oh, I should go back. To the right of it is a glass of Peppa's wine. To the left of it is a glass of her sheep's cheese called pecorino. There she is cracking walnuts. And this will be November because they make a special sweet for All Saints' Day, which is when they put the walnuts in a special sweet called pasta dolce, sweet pasta. And as the cold weather comes, you're going to be using more of your wood. That's our neighbor Rufino and his wife Assunta for the wood burning stove and the fireplace. This is actually our wood shed. And that's me cooking on our wood stove. That's 1975. But it's summer. But why was I cooking on a wood stove in the summer? Probably because the gas bottle we had for the 2 burners, which was all we had, was probably out of gas. And see that tin can hanging over the wood stove? That's Pino's invention. He cut a hole in it and put a candle in it, so in the winter I had light over my wood stove. And that's my dish drainer up there. And I know exactly what I was making because I'm adding a little hot water to it. That was a rabbit cacciatore, no doubt about it. And that steel thing to the right of it is a hole, it's an insert in your stove, so you'll always have some hot water from your wood stove. That's Pino making a torta bread on the wood stove, a flat Umbrian hearth bread. There's Peppa making torta. And if you write me, I'll send you Peppa's torta recipe. I've got it on my computer. I've got to find it. Now, she doesn't make bread in her outdoor bread oven anymore, but she makes it in her wood stove. At one time, the women made in the outdoor bread oven. The main source of heat of the house was the fireplace, however. That was one then. That's a modern one. It's not ours. This is the one Pino built for our farmhouse. This used to be the old rabbit stall. It's no longer. It's become a living room. That's me at the fire, and these are 3 of our farm neighbors who walked across the field to come visit us one cold winter night, December 1975. And there they are. Marino, his uncle, who's no longer with us, nor is his father, Genuino. And that big platter there was for serving polenta. See it hanging on my top. And that is Nona Otavia. She's no longer with us, and she visited us at Christmas time because hanging on the fireplace are the stockings my mother made. That's what was Santa Claus she made for Pino. There were no children. This is Chiarina at the fireplace in the winter, and they would also make soups in these big cauldrons. This is 1975. This is last year. So we still go to visit our farm neighbors on winter nights. We sit around the fire and talk, and maybe they'll make bruschetta. And Pepe's got hanging over his wood stove prosciutto. With a little bit of smoky flavor we'll add to the prosciutto, which is, of course, salt-cured ham. And we took Peppa to visit Pepe and Gentile. There's Pino. And Pepe made us bruschetta. And the fireplace, which he built because he's also a stonemason, he can do anything. And homes are a little bit more comfortable now. And this is the night of San Martino, when we went to have chestnuts and vino, see it? Castagna and vino. And Peppa loves to roast them on the wood stove. She'll split them, roast them on the wood stove. And then she opens them and she soaks them in her Merlot wine, and then she eats them. No better way to eat chestnuts. Look at this guy's hands. This is Ubaldo, another farm neighbor. Look at those hands. And that's Peppa's son, Giancarlo. See? She soaked them in wine. You can see it's all. She wraps them up, crushes them, soaks them in wine. She said it's the only way to have them. So this is Velia. When you go to visit your farm neighbors, eat some snacks, sit and talk about the old days. You might husk corn. And sometimes people fall asleep. There's our son Keegan in the yellow shirt. And Giancarlo, and Peppa's laughing. Because this is often the case at Peppa's in the evening when we go for a visit, and I think we had dinner. This is the pasta dolce in the foreground. And that's what they eat on November 1st and 2nd. And it's tagliatelle, but they make it without eggs. And they put on crushed walnuts, chocolate, alkermes liqueur, and mix it in, and it's a sweet. It's called sweet pasta. That's another successful night at And then, let's see, that's November, so early December. I'm pregnant with Keegan here, so that's got to be 79. It's when everybody, all the women, spend the days under the oak trees, like this though, you're going fast, getting acorns. And farm women pick so fast that they can get a gunny sack this full of acorns in the morning. Because what you want to do is feed your pigs acorns in December because you'll have the best prosciutto imaginable. You can spend an acorn-fed pig. So that's acorn time. It's November. It rarely doesn't snow. This was last winter it did. Now, this is January pig slaughter time. These are my beloved first 2 pigs, Fofo and Jaja. What you never do is name a pig. Because when Jaja was my favorite. When she became prosciutto capocolli salami for a year, every time I ate a sausage, I cried Jaja. So Pino said, no more naming the pigs. Not naming the pigs helps. So that's what happened to Jaja. She gets shot here. She does, by the butcher. And then they pour boiling water over her and skin her, which is going on here. There's Pino. My brother sent him the Daniel Boone hat. For one Christmas saying this is appropriate for the way you and my sister are living. I have to do an aside, what my parents thought all of this. Once they met Pino, once they came, they loved it. But my father once wrote me a letter, which I ripped up, crying threw in the fireplace, and I wish I'd saved it. And my beloved father wrote me, I did not sacrifice to have you study at Santa Clara, go on to Berkeley to see you spend your life slopping pigs with a Sicilian bricklayer. I read that damn thing and said, what was the letter about? And I said, just forget it. Well, once they met, and here, see, then they carry her because she's going to be strung from a tree. That's Marino helping us. This guy with his back to us is Adamo. He's a pig butcher. He's a farmer who's learned the art of pig butchering. And you know, those guys are called the Norcino butchers. Pig butchers all over Italy are called Norcinos because the art of making prosciutto capocollo salami starts in Norcia, which is Umbria. So that's the Norcino. That's Marino. That's my Jaja. They're checking to make sure, I guess, they've got all the innards out of there. I don't know how I smiled for this. There she is. Two halves of Jaja. Now we're making salami, so the task is you take the intestines out, rinse it in your home vinegar, that will disinfect it, take away unpleasant smell. Then the butcher, that's Adamo with the mustache, he brings his equipment, Pino's on the left, and you put it up to this grinder, and that we're making salami there. That's salami, 1975. And that's salami today. At Pepe's last winter, that he still makes he does his own butchering. Salami. There's Gentile holding your salami. And then this was our pig butchering. They play this game, Mora. You have to guess how many fingers you're throwing out. So this is the game they're playing in the evening in the kitchen after doing the pig butchering. Now we're in my storeroom, and there's the butcher's wife, Antonia, with my pig, and she's telling me, La coda è così buona. The tail is really good. See, if you know how to cook it, but I just cook the pig's tail. And then on the right, look at, oh, I can see them. I didn't even notice. I've got the peaches I put up in the summer. Upper level is jam. The lower ones are all the fruit juices, and then all the tomatoes are in that bunch and everything that we put up. There's Pino and myself in 75. And oh, I didn't notice this. Look off above Pino's head. That's the old print of Sant'Antonio that we found in the stall. And he's the patron saint of animals, not Francis of Assisi. He's the St. Anthony Abbot, who was off in the Egyptian desert as a hermit. His only companion was a little pig. And he's in every stall, and we moved into a farmhouse which abandoned for 20 years, and we found St. Anthony in the oxen stall. So we thought it was something quite special. We took it up and put it in the kitchen, and I don't know where it is anymore, actually. This is our neighbor with one of his pigs. These are all recent. Farmers and their pigs, proud of their pigs. And there's the pig turned into prosciutto. And this is it. This is Giuseppina, and people love her. We go, you met Giuseppina, because they did the Perugia Deruta tour with me. They were in Umbria. And the only foods you eat at Giuseppina's house that they didn't raise on the land are the sugar, coffee, and salt. I kid you not. The bread is made from their wheat.
Wow.
The pasta is made from their wheat. It's their eggs, it's their vegetables, it's their meat, everything. Wasn't that special? There's Giuseppe. And Paolo saying, this prosciutto is perfetto. That's her husband, perfetto. There's Pepe slicing some of his prosciutto. This is the little church where we were married, up behind our house. Poppy time, going into the spring. And broom. The broom is covering the mountains right near Assisi, and at the end of the summer, it'll be cut down, bound into brooms. This is Nonna with her broom in 1975. And they will use the brooms to sweep out the stalls because they don't have money to buy brooms. And Mrs. Carina, her husband still makes her brooms. This was taken last spring. But that broom is going to be used to sweep the ash out of her bread oven when she's ready to bake bread. May, this is 1975. I just got back from picking wild asparagus, and it's asparagus time. Peppa picked, this is last spring, and she's going to make risotto with her wild asparagus. And these women, recent photo, have gone for field greens, This woman is 95 and still scrambles the hills for fielding. And good old Gina, she's 92. And she's just come back from all day on Mount Subasio, and that sack is filled with whale fat. And Peppa has just washed out her chicory, which she then steams with garlic and olive oil. April 30th is the vigil of the 1st of May, and it's celebrated with people coming around house to house singing, and it happened to us April 30th, our first year at the farm. There were singers under our window about midnight, and Pino's Sicilian, so he didn't know this custom. We leaned out the window, there's an accordion player and there's a tambourine player, and we were new enough to invite them in, and they came in, and we had wine and talked, and then we asked, what can we give you? They said, please, some eggs. And they're called the Maggiaioli, the men who sing in May. And so they go house to house, they sing all night till noon the next day. They ended up in those days with hundreds of eggs, which they then sold to have a lunch out together the following morning. And this is the Maggiaiolo. And this is a farm woman leaning out her window. They've been singing all night. This is the next one, 1975. These photos are all the 70s. These are the Maggiaioli. And look at these two men are dancing. These are the Maggiaioli, 75. And this is at our house last year, April 30th. And that's our living room, and there's Pino. Then they came in for wine and, refreshment. And then they continued and they sang all night till noon the next day. This is my first birthday present from Pino. It was a pregnant sheep. And she cost probably the equivalent of $20. And I'm sure that the shepherd who sold her to Pino thought he was very clever because she was old, lame, and arthritic, so who would want her? But she was pregnant, and she gave us our first 2 lambs. And we milked her, and Pino made sheep's milk cheese. And I washed my sheep's wool down in the creek like these farm women did. But this is a photo from 1975. I didn't take it. So you take your sheep's wool on your head down through the creek and scrub it on rock using sand to get the muck out. Now you might say, why didn't you just put it in soapy water? I didn't think to do it. I could have bought soap. But the farm woman didn't do that. And they taught me how to wash my sheep's wool. So I did whatever they told me. And they did that, and I did that too. And then the sheep's wool is taken to a wool carder. And this is 1975, a street near Santa Clara in Assisi. You couldn't walk in May because it was full of wool. How times have changed. That's Assisi, 1975, the wool carder. These are our boys from one of the goats. Keegan's 33, Matthias 31. And these are the sheep of Aldo, who finally is no longer herding. He used to be on our field all the time. We'd let him graze when all the crops were in, and then he'd always give us sheep's milk cheese as a thank you. And Marina told me he went to see him. He's over 90 now, and he can't bear being indoors. He used to come up on our land and live in a van. And he had his sheepdogs outside, and he'd go home and see his wife and get his clothes washed about every 2 weeks. There he is, his beloved dogs. These photos I took last year, and this. He came home one night up our road. This is midnight. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, I found her. This was the lamb that had been lost. He'd been looking for her for 5 hours at night. He was like 88 when I heard this. There's Pino, not our sheep's milk cheese. We've never made that much. We're buying sheep's milk cheese in Sicily, but I just wanted to get a photo in of some good pecorino. This is Pepe and Gentile's. Look at those hands. And that's their cheese. And Pino has goats again, but this was one of our first goats. And that's him last year with his goats. I gotta check the difference. Wait. Oh wait, I'm going forward. Hold on. Wait, I don't want, this is back space, right? Yeah, I'm just checking the difference out in the faces here. Okay. Spring is also, it's the time when you get the most lambs, the most of everything, because it's mating time. And it's when you take your pig down to the boar to get her mated so she can produce your piglets. And that's what's happening here. 1975. that big guy is a little one. And she's a female. And I remember taking Jaja and Fofo down the hill through the woods about 1 kilometer to the boar. And Peter would be beating them. We took one female at a time. You know when they're in heat. Beating her on the rear end, and I had a can of acorns under her snout. And so we'd go down the road, and I'd go and shake the acorns. And she'd come after me, and Peter would whack her. And then we'd get her down to the guero, it's called, the wild boar. And she'd stay a couple days at the home of the farmers who had the boar. And then I remember I come riding back on my motorbike from my English language school, and 3 or 4 days after, one of the farmers, Quinto, they were 2 brothers, Quinto, he'd be at the fence yelling, "È fatto!" It's done. Hi, Carolyn. And so we'd have to go down and pick her up. Because once it's done, you go pay the fee, and that's it. Because they have to keep feeding this boar, this pig, and it's not fierce, right? So let me tell you, if you thought it was hard to get her down there, you should have tried to get her away from the wild boar. It's not easy. We'd eventually get her home. These are the 2 brothers today who had the boar in the 70s. We're killing a rabbit here. All farmers had their rabbits. This is one of our neighbors with a rabbit. And they're going to have rabbits. There's Gentile with one of the rabbits. They're eaters of white meats, rabbits and chickens. Peppa and one of her rabbits. And this is me with my chickens in 75. Chickens for meat, chickens for eggs, and we had turkeys up there. And there they are. I'm bringing them in, the turkeys and the geese, because they were free range, but you have to bring them in at night because fox will come. And this is Emma today with her chickens, and Tilly with hers, and Tilly with her eggs. For eating and for the making of pasta, and I have to tell you something about eggs. I did a cooking class at our home, and there was this 26-year-old American girl there with her mother, and I cracked the egg open, the yolk was orange, and she screamed. She said, "What's wrong with this egg?" And I said, "Well," she said, "the yolk's orange." I said, "That's the color it's supposed to be." She'd only seen those pale yellow anemic looking eggs, I guess. And this is Gentile Chiarina on a rural life tour. And she's just killed some doves for meat. And these 3 little, these kids were great. These 4 kids are from North Carolina. Emma, chopping up one of her chickens. With my eggs, I'd make all the pasta that we ate. That's where we know the pasta in our farm kitchen in 75. See, that's where I cook. Those, either the 2 gas burners right there or the wood stove. And on the left, making torta bread with our friend Renato in the 70s, and Peppa making torta bread with her eggs and flour now, and here she's making her food. Peter Roth took that on the first rural life tour ever. He was a great photographer. There's Giuseppina with it. I think I took that the day we were there, maybe.
She wasn't wearing that though. So.
She wasn't wearing the dress. And then we move into haying season, and the fields are, they were worked with tractors, but also with those scythers to get the most you could out of the land, which means you cut also the hay burn at the side of the hill. That's me out getting grass for my rabbits, and I take the pigs out. Because they always, farm women told me, if your pigs get some grass in their systems, their livers will be more healthy and you'll have better prosciutto. That's the site I had to use to cut the grass for the rabbits, the Grim Reaper site. That's our neighbor, these are neighbors haying today. Haying then, combining the shafts, and this is the haying in 1975. It was a lot of fun in the hay sometimes. He's just, that old guy's just kidding around. There's Pino, 1975.
Watch it.
And then you'd all stop for pauses in the morning, and the farmers would bring out their wine, you could see, and the women would come down from the kitchen with big bowls of fava bean soup about 7 a.m. They should start working at 5. You know, with this global climate change, nobody can do this any longer. It's too hot. We used to have lunches out under the oak trees about 1 o'clock with roast goose and pasta and everything. You'd eat in the shade, it was hot. It is not done anymore. The farmers are haying and scything earlier, as early as June. It used to be done late July because things are so hot. And they do it at night night in air-conditioned tractors. So if anybody here doesn't think things are changing, I can tell you they are. Because the way we farmed in 1975 is not done. It would not be humanly possible to be on the fields during the day in June or July. Impossible. This is the summer, and you have they have these sleds to bring the crops in from the field because you have to have money to buy a cart because a wheelwright has to make the wheel. So they make these sleds with their oak tree beams and fir beams. So all these shafts of, these sheaves are being brought in on these treads on the sleds. That's our Christmas card of 1983, and that's the sled that was left at the farm, which we found. That was a farm cart left by the farmers who've been there before us. And this is the building of the straw stack in July of '75. See the pole up there? They're going to hack it all to make these. And you have to be a real expert. Only these guys with the know-how are at the top of the straw stacks. Then they can cut them with these huge kind of scythers to bring into the stalls for bedding. They're two of our neighbors in 75. And that's me helping serve the wine. The women did that kind of stuff, and the men are taking a break and it's scything in 75. The bread oven. The goose, ducks, geese, this is 75, would be roasted in the outdoor bread oven. Mandina made her bread once a week, maybe 10 loaves. She carried down from the house. And this is a bread oven of today, Peppa's, and it's restored, but it's no longer in use. There's one still in use. This is the modern alternative of the bread oven. Getting still roast goose in it on Sunday, but it's now a gas oven. And these are 4 elderly neighbors, and they have stories to tell, as do all these people. These kids are now in their 50s, and I remember them with fondness, everything they taught us, and what we learned from people with hands like these. And there they all are, and this has been dedicated to them. So thank you very much.